podcasting is like, baby, it's been around for so long, and there's not like dedicated tools for it. PodCon is only like in its second year.
I feel like there could be audio editing software specifically built for podcasting that would make the whole process much less miserable. But like all audio software is built for like mixing music, which makes sense because that's a larger market. But still, like there's a lot of podcasts, and it's been out. Like podcast has been a thing for like 15 years at least.
Oh, we could just rehash, man. I mean, I could go on and on about you can only do plus 100% speed on a professional recording software.
Well, as the listeners might not know, or I guess they might know, we haven't recorded in several months, 4 months, maybe more than that. And we just decided to record yesterday. But we should maybe start with just catching up. What have you been up to for these 4 months?
Yeah, the 4 months happened, and I wanna throw back to this show's origins, which is Hello Internet, and they do have a like more regular schedule than that, but it's supposed to just be whenever and kind of things like that. And so we had a gap. I'm all right with it. We're gonna keep on plowing through. Maybe like because people will say like, oh no, we're back now, and then that's like almost kiss of death that they're never coming back. When people will say like, I'm definitely gonna start writing more on this blog or something.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna say that. We might go away for another 4 months.
We promise we'll make an episode the next time we feel like it.
Anyway, part 2 of that question there was what I've been up to. And I guess the 2 things that I do remember that definitely have happened is 1, I got a new car, and then also I got engaged, which I apparently didn't tell you until like I sent out a save the date the other day.
I liked your save the date. It was a little video that was made.
Maybe that can go in the show notes in some kind of like, I'll take out the location or something, or I don't care. Random people can show up maybe. We'll see.
Do you have a honeymoon place picked out?
So today at work, in a down moment, 2 things that I did. 1, I organized show notes for this show, which actually I believe to be detrimental to the show because I like try to fit it all in, but I did it. So we'll see. The other thing that I did was I went to Scott's Cheap Flights, which I've used before as a free member. And I was like, you know what? Let's just, they have the little trial. It accepts Apple Pay, which is really, really nice. And I hit that button. And so now I'm on like 14-day free trial. For those that don't know, Scott's Cheap Flights is presumably a guy named Scott. And I don't know how many other people work there now, but it started with him making just a spreadsheet. He just manually found, and I think still for the most part manually finds just great flight deals, whether it's like specials or they accidentally like made a flight way cheaper than it should be. And then they just, basically list them, and then you click it and it'll tell you like instructions or just how to go about getting them and how long that deal will last. So
yeah, I'm subscribed to just the free email list, just in hopes that one day I'll be able to like I'll get an email that says, oh, $20 flights to Iceland. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Well, Seattle, that's great. I'm at like Louisville, or nothing. But that's actually kind of nice because it limits it. And I just missed an Australia one. I want to go somewhere where it'll be warm because it'll be October. And then that's about all that I know.
Well, we went to Hawaii, and it was amazing.
Hawaii is not out of the question.
I would recommend so we did an Airbnb for a week and then like a resort for the week, or for the second week, and the Airbnb was much, much better.
I mean, that'd be really cool. And then, so I don't know where yet. I might actually base it around cheap ticket prices, and then, I guess tropical or whatever. I'm not sold in any particular direction. But then kind of my plan is to not have a plan. And so tickets, which I'm even like up in the air on like how cool would it be to do this thing that people sometimes do where you just book a place that you don't even know where it is. But that probably will be required that I know where it is. So I'll do that. And then I'm on the fence about, do we book like a thing beforehand? Probably, again, we'll book the like Airbnb, which hopefully will be Airbnb and not, I don't know. I would prefer that over resort, I think, too. And then, but as far as like things to do, I'm going to leave that as open as possible.
Yeah, I think that's, whenever I go anywhere, I guess sometimes I'll look and just kind of get an idea of a list, but I don't like to plan trips too tightly, because then you get stuck into like the plan, just kind of like wandering around or like just hitting the random things that you see.
And Sid and I, we're at our best when we're just like nothing to do and just goofing around and hanging out kind of thing. So
Our first night we went to the Big Island for the first week. Our first night, we like drove around the entire island, basically, like from the time we got there in the morning until like 3 o'clock in the morning. We just like drove around the entire island the first night. Like we'll just like aimlessly go places and just like, oh, this over here, that looks kind of interesting. Let's go that way.
that's the way to do it. So what's been up with you, Gil?
One thing that's kind of cool is there's been a bill floating around so a few weeks ago was daylight savings, and there's a bill floating around in Washington that's passed, I think it's passed the House and it's passed the committees in the Senate, but it's to get rid of to make it daylight savings year round, so no time change in Washington. And I am so excited for this. If I seemingly it's going to pass because Senate also has a bill in, and I just cannot wait for this to pass because I've been complaining about daylight savings time since like as long as I can remember.
There's a couple factors that like I think about when I'm deciding, like, it's not that this happens a lot, but sometimes I'm like, oh, which state should I live in kind of in the future? Like right now we're deciding between Indiana and Kentucky. And I'm just like, the things on this list are like freedom of alcohol, freedom of like driving, like how their ticketing system and things like that work. And just like, do you need to have the front license plate? And then do they do daylight savings time? And almost everyone fails that right now, but
Yeah.
it makes Arizona look better. And man, Seattle's going to look great if that passes.
Yeah, I really hope that it does. Because, I mean, obviously, I think everyone knows this, but winter is, like, bad enough. Why would we make the days... Why would we take an hour of light away from at the end of the day? So I don't know. I'm really looking forward to that. And Washington also has no income tax, which is nice. No state income tax. So there's a few interesting things about Washington.
I have gotten for myself, I spent just over $1,300 at the Apple Store on a whim getting the, let me get this right, iPad Pro 11-inch space gray or whatever, just Wi-Fi, 64 gigabyte with the keyboard cover thingy and the Apple Pencil 2 or whatever the newest one is, and Apple Care. So that's what I did like 2 days ago.
And what's the use case for this iPad?
So I am a big proponent of like taking advantage of the return policies. And I tried the Apple Watch Series 3 one time and I didn't keep it. I got the whole LTE thing. It was the one with the red dot. It was working wirelessly on its own. And the point of the Apple Watch when I got it was like, can this actually be a useful replacement of my phone? And so I can be like less connected. And really, it was another device to charge and another thing that generally was on my wrist in addition to my phone. And it buzzed and beeped. And now, as we know, I'm into like more classic analog watches. And so I got the iPad Pro because I was like, all right, let's see what an iPad can be. People love this particular iPad. Like they got a lot right. It fixed a lot of the problems with the last one. It's got these nice, like, short bezels or what do you call it? Like shallow, dim.
Small.
I don't know the word. Small, I guess. Okay. Small bezels. Doesn't have the notch, but it has Face ID. It's like this thing kicks butt. And so I was like, all right, let's just take this trial period. The only risk is if I lose the thing. And I really don't feel, Apple doesn't feel bad. Like, the salespeople, I'm very upfront with them. Like, this will be returned. This is like, I'm seeing if I like this thing. And even if I love it, I'm going to return it and then probably, like put it on a Christmas list or sell something and then get the money or whatever. And they're fine with it. Like, the reps never care. Apple doesn't care because like offering a return policy is way better because it just gives people peace of mind than like 1% of people actually return the thing.
Yeah.
And, I choose to be in that 1%. And I don't really even in the worst case scenario where if it were completely ripping them off, it's like they make so much money. So I don't particularly mind it. So giving it a shot, this thing will definitely be returned. I made you make me promise and I made my fiance make me promise. But I'm giving it a shot, and there's two reasons. One, I want to see, can this thing match in any way the capacity, like what I can do on my little MacBook here. I got the MacBook 2015. It's just called MacBook, and this thing works great. It's got all the software. I really have it set up just like I like it. But I got to haul the MacBook around. I got to crunch over it because it's got to sit on like a flat surface, and I got to typey type and like the trackpad. And really, that wouldn't even be too bad if the software was great. But I don't know. There's something that Apple's done with iOS where like Mac OS, the things always need updated, or like, third party stuff, and like just the app store ecosystem is so much more seamless and just feels easier. And so the iPad, like, the point is, all right, I got rid of it, but up until very recently I had Adobe Illustrator. I had everything, Adobe Creative Cloud, everything, and I didn't use it ever unless I had something very specific to do. And the question is, like, can I get an iPad? Can I get something equivalent to Illustrator or any other tool that you can be productive with on iPad? I'm open to like lots of avenues here, and like, can I be productive even if it's in a different way because it's a different beast than like a MacBook, and maybe it's not as powerful and it's a little more weak, but can I produce things of interest that I can't with the computer? Because if I can, that's awesome, because you can like recline and be like very casual and naturally using an iPad, whereas the MacBook, I think at some point these things are going to feel like very dated compared to like, I don't know if it's necessarily iPad, but the computer that you hunch over and like the pointy clicky thing with little tiny menus. Like Adobe is particularly not great with the little tiny menus, and you kind of squint and like, I'm going on about this, but like, I want to see if the iPad can replace the MacBook.
Okay, so you're looking to replace. This isn't in addition to, like, for certain tasks.
Well, so that's Apple's pitch, is that it can replace your laptop. And if it were to be able to, which it definitely can in all respects, because like...
So for example, this podcast, couldn't you edit the podcast? Can you record the podcast?
So, we'll see what they do with the next iOS. There's all these rumors, and maybe they're going to merge things.
Yeah.
And it's set up. That's what people keep saying. It's like a really powerful thing that's just limited by iOS. So I figured, like, let's give it a go right now. And then for recording purposes, well, I think it would be possible recording into Logic and then using Discord simultaneously with Craig running. Like, Craig is our little like backup recorder thing in Discord. It's not going to replace that. But I guess kind of the question is, can it be comparable or be productive in a different way?
I would love to be able to do that too. I think it's awesome that you're testing it out just to see, like, maybe you can like work around a few things, because if you have to make a few compromises but you can still mostly get there, I think maybe it is worth it. There are just a few things, like it's like 90% of the way there. Like, you can't do any development on it. You can't do any audio editing on it. And then just like, I don't know, like there's some things that you can customize in Mac OS that you like, there's just not system access to in iOS. So it's like just those few things, like they're kind of small, but it just takes it just past the point of me being able to get there. And I know that you love to be able to like customize those types of things too. So I don't think that it can be a replacement yet. I think it's going to have to be like a replacement for certain tasks maybe, if you do want to make it work. But you're going to have like a laptop in a drawer for like a few things.
I desperately want it to be a replacement. Just from the first couple days here, I don't think it's there yet. There's potential, and people have very niche things where they are just like an artist and they just draw, and they like maybe actually make money from that, and that's just, they send people to drawing. I'm probably not going to get into drawing. Motion graphics, like that is a real high potential thing that I'd love to be able to do on an iPad because I'd actually enjoy it, whereas like on a computer I'm hunched over and but so like there's a couple pretty solid illustration programs, especially Affinity Designer is like probably the premier one. The Polymatter YouTube guy, I don't know, he might use the desktop version, but we talked about him before, and so he uses Affinity Designer, and it's like a real deal, like coming after Adobe kind of thing. So
I actually started using that a little bit for photo editing. I've been trying to get into just like photography stuff, like just like for fun. And I started using Affinity on desktop, and it didn't have what I wanted for photo editing. But I saw a lot of great reviews, and I know people really love it.
Yeah, and there's a couple others actually. I was surprised to find like multiple things competing in this space just on the iPad.
Yeah. Pixelmator, Pixelmator's iOS app I think is really great, and then I also use their desktop app, which I also love.
So but then I got some like note-taking apps. I got some photo apps. Some like I think there's a couple video editing. Adobe has apps for it that I have to sign into, and so I haven't gotten around to those ones. Like probably 90% have either made me wanted me to sign in or pay before I was able to use it, which is just super annoying. So I've put those in a little folder for the time being. Yeah, like I said, I'm open to things. So drawing apps, which I'm probably not going to get a drawing, but like writing, so like copywriting and things like that. So just any form of creative output, I want to kind of evaluate it on that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I'm doing here, which is a little bit interesting, is for the duration that I have this, this is the beauty. I always have the phone with me. Always have my phone. I do unproductive things with my phone a lot of the time. I also do productive things with my phone some of the time, but it mixes and it mashes and it's not clear and there's a lot of gray lines or blurred lines or whatever. I want to label the iPad as I do not use this unless it is a productive thing, which in itself there's a little bit of a line on like, okay, what counts as productive, but I'm trying to, not go down any rabbit holes or be unproductive on this thing. And then the other rule that I have is I will not use it in like a reclined position or with my feet up because I feel like that's pretty much synonymous.
Yeah.
And so those two things combined, I'm just seeing if I can get away with the iPad being like almost a dedicated device. You can't do anything on, like, since I always have the phone and it's basically the same as my phone, if I have anything unproductive to do, I will do it on the phone. The iPad being basically an identical environment, but then it has the nice pencil and is just like kind of nicer, bigger kind of thing, is really cool to use as a dedicated, isolated productivity device. And I don't know if that mentality is going to be that helpful, but that's kind of the thought, the idea.
If it's going to be a laptop replacement, doesn't it have to be more than just a productivity tool? Or do you only use your laptop for productivity stuff now?
No, that's the thing is, so the laptop does special things. Like if I have a bunch of tabs open on my phone or I go down some kind of research rabbit hole and it's just not a productive thing that I'm doing, laptop's the only one that can do some of those things. Or maybe it's a specific app on the laptop or whatever. Like a game would be a good example, although I really don't have any games on this that like only runs on Mac OS. So like the laptop can't be a solely productive device because I can't do the non-productive things on anything but the laptop. So it has to happen on the laptop, and so things mix. The iPad being the same OS as I have in my pocket all the time is the only place where I can, limit and say, all right, this thing will be productive exclusively.
So what about another big thing for me that I'd be missing out on is just like the file system, and like I have a whole hierarchy of folders and folder names and things, and where I store photos or documents and things like that. I guess most of mine stuff is in iCloud anyway. But what about you? Do you have something like that on your Mac that's not going to translate directly or as easily to the iPad?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically all on the desktop in a series of folders, and I try to keep it aligned in one row so it's not too cluttered ever, and I clean it up whenever like a project's done, use the desktop as like a project space, and then file it away.
Yeah. But like in this test that you're doing, like are you trying to completely transfer everything to the iPad, or are you just kind of just like using it for certain things?
No, so really what I did, okay. I set it up with my same account, so it shares like Wi-Fi passwords and some things like that. And then I deleted every app that could be deleted, pretty much. So it is a blank tablet with nothing. I'm not trying to like move my files over. I'm just saying like, okay, let's install every productive app that I can find, or anything that really uses the pencil kind of interestingly. And I'm just testing it out. So,
gotcha. Like
for example, I kind of wanted to do like a little infographic for Kentucky Derby that I have not started really. And I was just, I'm going to run, maybe if this doesn't work out, then maybe I won't even ever get around to it. But I kind of want to try to make that graphic with the iPad.
Yeah.
Kind of exclusively. And I will say, so this file system is terrible. I love the camera roll in my phone. It is a fantastic history of everything that I do.
Yeah.
It is unfortunate that it mixes in with like business and pleasure type things. So like I take pictures of me and my fiance or whatever, or just things I think are cool, but then also like screenshots of things of like emails and whatever. But it is like a fantastic timeline archive thingy that you do not get on the MacBook. And my closest equivalent is I take a screenshot, which then saves to my desktop. I have a little shortcut key, and then I like put it in some folder. But you know, they're not organized, and there's not like, it's just so much better with the camera roll. That is something that the Mac does not have that the iPad does a lot better.
Yeah.
If you have the storage for it, or the iCloud storage.
What does the home screen look like on the iPad right now?
The actual home screen. So I put everything I can't delete on the dock, because apparently the dock actually will keep getting bigger and bigger. The first page has nothing, and the widgets or whatever you call it, Today View, has nothing. The actual page that has icons on it, aside from, like I said, the dock has the things I couldn't delete. But the page that has things on it, I have a folder called meh, which is MEH, which means I either was not impressed by this app, or it wanted to charge me money immediately, or it required me to log in. One of those three things. And then I have an Adobe folder, because there ended up being 6 Adobe apps. And then I have 7 that are neither of those, which mean that they are vaguely interesting and not Adobe. So that's the home screen right now. It's just apps that I'm trying, see if I can do something interesting. I haven't actually gotten Affinity yet, because it costs $20, and the guy at the Apple Store said I can challenge that or whatever. If I return the iPad, I can say like, oh, I don't have an iPad anymore, Apple, give me my money back. But I'm a little hesitant.
Like I said, I did buy it, and I bought it on desktop, and it was $40, and I wasn't impressed with it. And this was 3 weeks after I bought it, and I just pressed a button in like my purchase history, and it refunded it with like no questions. So yeah, that's fairly easy. I don't think it's gonna be a big thing.
I'll probably download it after this. I was getting through the other apps, but none of them. A couple are pretty cool, but yeah. So we're pretty early in the experiment. I'll tell you though, it is not looking too promising. I have a couple notes here. Well, so first I want to talk about the setup. So I turned it on. Super cool. I don't know how long it's done this, but it will say, "Hey, just hold your other iOS device near me," and then then you hit continue, like one button, and it figures out who you are, which is awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
And the other kind of cool part of that is it gives you a little it's a little cloud of blue dots, but it's essentially a QR code, and that's just the secondary confirmation that so after you hit that continue button on like my phone to confirm that like my phone that was near the iPad is to be the iCloud account that the iPad should use. It then turns my phone into a little camera mode, and my phone, you point it at the QR code, but it's way cooler looking than a QR code. And it's like a verification to make sure like your iPad doesn't sync to some random person in the coffee shops. To their iCloud account instead of yours. So that was super cool. And they did a very good job with that.
Yeah, I got a new phone recently, and I got a new like an Apple TV or whatever for the living room, and it's the same setup. Like it was the same thing. It's just like such a delight when it happens, because it's like when you get a new thing, it's always like that's the worst part, is having to set everything up, and then when the thing pops up and just say, hey, we can magically do this, just like wave your old device next to it, and everything works fine. It's very, very cool.
There was something I think something similar happened when I got the Apple Watch Series 3, but I don't fully remember. It was something like a code like that. But so then this was immediately negated by the fact that so iPad versus iPhone, probably like at least 80% of the settings are identical. I tried to restore from iCloud backup. It gave me this kind of vague prompt that I don't remember the exact phrasing of, but it was like no iPad data found or something like that. So we're just going to get the actual data from your iPhone. We're not going to get any of the settings from your iPhone. It says like this is not an iPad backup, so we're just going to get data. And I never had an iPad, so I don't have any settings for it to pull that are iPad settings. They're 80% the same probably. So it's really annoying. I hit that button because I was a little confused and I didn't totally understand. The exact opposite of what I wanted to happen happened. I got all of the data, like apps and photos and whatever. I didn't want any of that because I wanted this essentially to be a new device but have shared Wi-Fi and settings and the boring stuff that of course I want to be the same. And instead it ignored all my settings, didn't give me any of the like just like toggle switches in the actual settings app. Like none of that was set differently, but it then gave me all the data. So that was a little disappointing. I think they could do that better.
Yeah, things like that are tricky. Just like the phrasing of things. I have issues with that sort of thing all the time too. It's just where it says one thing and I don't like it could be interpreted multiple ways.
Like the primary reason that I haven't upgraded the MacBook that's sitting in front of me to the brand new one that looks the same but has all new internals and stuff is that I would have to do something. I don't even care if it's like 5 minutes of work, but it's probably not. It's probably like, I have a lot of weird settings and things, and like unless the thing that I buy at the Apple Store is going to like be bit for bit identical to my current machine, except for, the different storage or whatever. And there's a couple scenarios where it's not possible and maybe the new machine has different settings, and that's fine. Maybe like a wizard to configure the new or different settings or decide what to do with the data that doesn't fit on the smaller hard drive or something. But like if they could make it so that it was like just literally the same across the board, which seems like a very Apple thing that I would hope that they would do. And they come close sometimes. Like it's pretty all right with like going to a new iPhone, but like it wouldn't be that close if I got a new MacBook. There would be little settings here and there, and like icons would be in different places, and I don't even know. And I don't want to deal with that.
I think that you can, I've never done this, but I've looked into it before. But I think that you can like do USB-C to USB-C on two different MacBooks and have one like restart in recovery mode, and you can basically image the other laptop onto the new one.
Oh.
So it'd be exactly the same in every way, but just on the new hard drive.
Yeah, that would be perfect. And again, sometimes the new devices have something different that makes that impossible to do exactly, but
yeah,
you could get so much closer than they get. And the fact that I have to I know it's going to be like, oh, I got to reinstall, relog in, Wi-Fi, and some of these they do now, but they don't do it all, and it's just as bad as if they did none of it because I got to figure out what they did and didn't do.
So on my laptop at work, all the passwords reset every so often, like so it clears all the cache and all the temporary, like all the memory and all that kind of stuff.
Is that intentional?
Yeah, so it's done on purpose, and all of my passwords are so complicated, and lots of things have two-factor authentication. So it's like every time that happens, it takes me like a week to log back into everything because it's just like such a pain.
Yeah. But anyway, so I've done a little bit with this iPad. I walked around it with a store. Like this thing looks like if you were to design. You see it in these shows, like, I don't know, Halo comes to mind, like the video game Halo, like the tablets that they would be holding in that or some kind of sci-fi movie or something is the current iPad. It looks like it's completely flat. It's just, it's got the curves on the, the screen is curved. It looks like from the future. So it looks super cool, and I tried actually using it like kind of in a clipboard way that you would probably see in these movies or whatever, where people like walking around with it and whatever. The 11-inch here, it's kind of heavy. I found it to be kind of heavy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's like a pound, but to like hold it continuously in a Bed Bath & Beyond, which is what I did, is not crazy pleasant, which drives me a little bit towards, I wasn't even sure which one I would get, but I was like, I'm going to go all out and just see how this goes. But I actually really like the Mini. I was afraid they'd kill that off, and they brought it back. Now it has pencil support. It's a little small, but it is by far the lightest. It's like almost half as light.
Yeah, I was really hoping they would do the bezel-less thing for the Mini, but it's a solid upgrade.
Yeah, if it was bezel-less, I would be completely all over it 100%, like an iPad Mini Pro. Oh. But that might be the direction if iPad is even worth doing, because I do like that lightness and pocketability, because this thing still, while smaller than my MacBook, is still like a thing.
Yeah, that's one thing that it's like definitely got over everything, is that it just looks like really great.
Yeah, I mean it's a cool device. And then the other thing about it that I just off the bat here, so I love this keyboard cover thingy combo. It's very kind of minimal, but the keys feel pretty good, and people have they've reviewed it very well, I think, in general. Even though these keys are far worse than the keys on my MacBook, and people complained constantly about the MacBook keys not being like depthy enough or whatever. some, you know,
Yeah, not clicky enough.
but like, yeah, it's like, oh, they don't like that the MacBook didn't have good enough keys, like versus the MacBook Pro. But then just because it's like an iPad, I guess I don't know why it gets a pass. But this crunched up keyboard that is very good for a like iPad keyboard, but still far worse than what you could get on the full MacBook keyboard, is being like very highly praised. So it's a little bit double standard in my opinion, but
Yeah.
I think it's very good. However, this tablet, like as beautiful as it feels and as good of a job Apple did on the cover, it feels so much worse with without, like, with the cover on it.
Oh yeah, I see that.
It's just like you take the cover off and you're holding this sleek metal thingy, and then with the cover on, which, you know, is not, you got to kind of take it off, and it's a little awkward to get the back part off, and like then the pencil's kind of hanging off the side too. Like without accessories, or like the pencil in your pocket and no cover, it's gorgeous, and you just whip out the pencil. But like with the pencil kind of like magnetically not super secure on the side, and then the cover, it's like a thing. I'm not loving that.
Yeah, I don't like anything hanging off of my devices. Like even I don't use the. Do you use a case
For what, my phone?
for your phone?
No.
Like even a case on the phone, it just really drives me crazy.
See, that's what the iPad. I got the cover because, like, you know, that at least I don't damage it if I drop it, and just because this is a trial period, and then I wanted to kind of try the keyboard and see if maybe that had some value, but I would need to like leave the cover off if I kept this thing.
Somewhat of a sidebar. I was talking to someone at work today, and he worked at Apple before he worked at Amazon, and I just asked him like what the biggest difference was. And well, the first thing he said was that Amazon moves really quick, and like everything at Apple is just very methodical. But he also said like the document writing, like obviously the contents of the document is one thing, but he was like the document also has to just look beautiful. Like you have to have a very certain like fonts, and it has to be like it has to look great before like anyone will actually read it, which I thought was very funny and like very just Apple.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Shout out to, do you ever use latex?
No, I've heard of it though.
I haven't really used it either, but it's cool. Like the fact, you think like, who would ever make a word processing program that's so nerdy that it like is fully programmable? And somebody is nerdy enough and they made it, and it's a pretty cool thing.
I love Markdown. Markdown's but I've never used latex or whatever it was.
I think there's hot controversy on which way you pronounce it.
Bernie, Assange, and Bitcoin.
Oh, that is my list of. This is recent topics. This is like recent, and I'm afraid that I'll take so long to edit that this is not any more recent. But, do you want to talk real quick about Sequence? Because hopefully you understand it better than I do.
Oh, Sequence is the one on here that I don't know anything about. Bernie, Assange, and Bitcoin are the three that I'm eyeballing. But what's Sequence?
It was Reddit's April Fool's-y thing.
Oh, okay. I very briefly looked at that and I got instantly bored of it.
Exactly.
So I don't know.
I think the gist of it, I don't know any of the mechanisms or how this worked, but they were like trying to build a story out of GIFs or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't look into it very far at all.
Nope.
It was just like, this is like not interesting. So I didn't look at that.
It's all downhill. Bitcoin, well, it had a little rally, and then I don't know if I'm sure by the time this gets published, I'll be eating my words and regretting everything that I didn't invest in it. But, you know, it bumped up real quick, and I think it's been a little bit not like stable recently.
No, so it was hovering around 4,000, and then it jumped up to the 5,000 to 5,200 kind of range.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been staying in there. It's been fairly stable, but it was around 4,000 for several months. Before that, I was at 6,000 for several months. But now it's kind of hitting resistance at 5,000. But it hasn't really dipped below that.
I get worked up, Gil. It's like I understand gambling addicts because of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. There's such a...
So do you have Bitcoin now?
No, I know that it's just as bad to not have it than to it doesn't make more sense. Like, because I do kind of think it's gonna go up here, and the same with Tesla. Like, I feel equally anxious about these things when they go up. But if I have it, if I have Bitcoin or if I have Tesla, like I literally will check it every 2 minutes. I've been to that point before.
Yeah, I do. I check it every day. I've got Bitcoin, but I've also got like 15, maybe 10 other coins.
I can't do it.
The one that I have, so Bitcoin is 40% of my portfolio, and then there's one called Brave, the BAT token, which I've talked about a lot on this podcast. That's like 18%. But that's the only one that I'm like way up on because I bought in at like 20 cents, and it hasn't been at 20 cents back since I bought in.
Where is it now?
32 cents. So it's up 50%.
Oh, yeah. I had several Bitcoin at one time, and then right as I graduated, and I kicked myself because like I was like, I should have just invested and then like just agreed to take it out at graduation, whatever it was, and just done that as like an experiment because it would have been crazy lucrative because it was right at like 10 or 19. It was somewhere in that range, $1,000 per Bitcoin. And I mean, I did make money. I'm pretty up on Bitcoin just from accidental wallets that I had laying around. Did we talk about that before? I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I gave a presentation in class and gave each person like 25 cents on a Bitcoin wallet, and I just recovered all those when it was really high. And so I'm up, so I'm happy, I guess.
I remember hearing about it and like being really interested in college, but I was like, I didn't know exactly how it worked. I thought it was just like a glorified database, which it kind of is, but it's much more complicated than that. But I thought it was just like a database. I didn't really understand what it was, and I was like, I don't know, I'm just still upset that I didn't invest when I first heard about it. And then I heard about it a few times since then, and then I only started looking into it like right before it like really went up in 2017.
Assange, because he's Bitcoin related. And I'll tell you why, Gil. So do you know what happened?
He got arrested in the UK for, I guess, conspiracy to hacking.
Well, so I am not even really crazy knowledgeable about this, but the thing of the crux of it here is that he ended up, for whatever reason, I don't know if he was like in England or London, and then Ecuador gave him citizenship and asylum, and he ended up in their embassy for like 7 freaking years. And like he has been there ever since. And it's been like this thing where like he didn't like have good hygiene, and they had to like bully him into like cleaning up after himself in their embassy, and like it's just this crazy story.
Like skateboarding down the halls and his not cleaning up after his cat.
Was he actually skateboarding? Is that a real story?
Yeah.
Exactly. So this just crazy situation that finally has come to an end. And I don't even know where we stand on this right now. But the cool thing about this especially, so sure, like they got him or whatever, but the insurance files. So every once in a while, like WikiLeaks, as I understand it, they put out this just torrent file that collectively all the ones they put out is like maybe 500 gigabytes or something. It's a bunch of data. And some of them I think are like in case the story they're working on, someone tries to like publish or compromise or something before they fully publish, and so their torrent thing is the totally unredacted story, and all they have to do is release the private key, or no, because it's symmetrically encrypted, so it's just they have the key. There's no public or private, it's just one key that encrypts it, and they would release that key if someone like compromised the story in some way. So it's like kind of a dead man's switch or whatever.
So the file is public, but it's encrypted.
Yeah, everybody has the ability to download it, like literally anyone. And it could be junk. It could be a bunch of junk. It could be all like a ruse. You don't know because it's just impossible to decrypt without the key that only WikiLeaks has. Some of these files, though, are allegedly dead man switches specifically for Assange. And the idea is, I don't know exactly if he gets killed or if he gets incarcerated or if what, but in some event, it's supposed to be like a deterrent so that if he gets killed or whatever, they release the keys, and then, some kind of incriminating data is presumably there. Or maybe it is just all a ruse and there's just a bunch of garbage files. Who knows?
Yeah, I did not know about that. That's really interesting, though. Do you know what kind of like dead man switch it is? Like, is he sending it, or does he have to like check in every week, or else something publishes automatically?
I don't think people know. If I had to guess, he's such a high-profile person that probably just somebody at WikiLeaks is instructed to tweet it if he dies. Like, there might be more complexity. I remember like when Snowden, I think during the Citizen 4 documentary or something, he was talking about how he had certain encryption mechanisms in place where he could not even decrypt the thing even if they like were torturing him. So it's like on a time delay, or I don't know. I've been kind of interested in this, and I have asked around on Reddit a couple times on how these things work, but it might just be that some other person is instructed to tweet. It might have some kind of blockchain component where it's like maybe listed on the blockchain and it only reveals itself. I don't know. I don't understand it enough, but one way or another, it'd get out there.
So this is a thing that we're expecting, like for this insurance decryption to be.
Well, he has been arrested, and he hasn't. I don't think it's been out yet. So I don't know. Maybe it's all fake, and they won't make anything of it ever. They'll never release these keys. You know, if it's fake information, they probably will just never release the keys, no matter what happens.
He has the P tape.
What?
He has the P tape.
What is that? The P tape?
Never mind. Never mind. I'll explain later. There's a it's just kind of a joke, I guess, but maybe there's some hint of truth behind it. But anyways, there's a people think that there's a P tape of Trump in some place in Moscow, like with, I don't know, we'll talk about it later. Just cut this whole part
peeing?
out. Yeah, like peeing on hookers.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Like, there you go. That's the thing.
That's what he has.
So, yeah. I mean, we'll see. I don't know. Actually, I really haven't checked, so maybe it's happened, but I don't think it has, and it might take his death to do it, or it will never happen, no matter what. I don't know. Just something interesting, something to look out for, because we're definitely in like a period of change and uncertainty here with him.
Yeah. I know that he got like his Bitcoin address got like $20,000 worth of Bitcoin in the first day or something.
Oh, just like in support or whatever.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. You want to talk about this failed moon landing real quickly?
Yeah, I haven't been caught up on all this stuff. So you'll have to enlighten me.
So Space.il Israel, it's an Israeli company, private company. One of the contenders in the Google Lunar X Prize that a couple months or maybe a year ago was canceled. They had pushed it back like 5 times. They had a deadline. People didn't meet it like 5 times in a row since, like early 2000s or something. I don't know. But it was this prize if you landed a lander on the moon, you roved a certain amount, and you streamed back HD video or something like that. Canceled it. No one's ever going to get that money because just nobody met the deadline 5 times. Space.il, one of the top contenders, was like, we're going to go for it anyway because they were so close. Launched on SpaceX rocket a couple months ago. Got to the moon. There was a little bit of a hiccup there when they were like in orbit, but they figured out the whatever. But they got to the moon. Like, they have pictures of the moon. It's really close. And kind of final stages of descent, a motor failed and they smashed into it.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So this was SpaceX's fault?
SpaceX launched it. They paid to be launched on the SpaceX rocket as like a ride share, or what do they call it? They were not the primary payload, but they rode along with another payload so that it was cheaper for them.
But the thing that failed was SpaceX or this company?
No, SpaceX has been flawless, and including on their Falcon 9 launch a couple months ago that launched this probe.
Gotcha.
The company, though, just failed to, the engine didn't work. It's possible that communications relay didn't work, which wouldn't really be on them, but I think something on their probe failed. Well, so, okay, they would have been the first private company to land on, any world, including the moon, but then the first on the moon. They are now the first to hit the moon privately, I think. And they're one of like 5 countries that have ever touched the moon with some kind of equipment. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. They hit the moon.
Yeah, they hit it. Well, the interesting thing with this is I really wanted to have a Bitcoin private key. It's tying it back to kind of like all the theme here is encryption. And so I had reached out to this company at some point, and I continue to reach out to them, but nobody listens to me. But I really wanted to have a Bitcoin private key on the lander so that if this exact thing happened where it impacts the moon at, I think, about 1 kilometer per second or something like that is what it ended up hitting the moon at, which is like way survivable for like a hardened thing that is meant to impact the moon. Even though it's a pile of wreckage right now, there would be a private Bitcoin key on the moon that anyone could send money to. And I think we talked about it on the show before, but like, it's a really powerful idea that if you have this secret that is just a private key and then you release the public key to like the public, there is an issue of trust where they have to trust that it really is there and you really don't have a copy of it. But anyone in the world, if you made that happen, could contribute Bitcoin to literally the surface of the freaking moon, Gil. It'd be awesome. And I wish that would have worked out, because the fact that it crashed, especially now, they have like no legitimate claim to like potentially the land. You know, if it's a functional probe, they might have a claim to the immediate vicinity of the probe. But since it's a pile of wreckage, I mean, the only use would be in a Bitcoin private key.
That's a really good idea. You've talked about that before, but that's a really interesting idea. You have to find a way to like provably generate the key on the moon, and like obviously, like you said, not have a copy. But that's a solvable problem.
Yeah, I've written about it. It is solvable, and you're never gonna have 100% guarantee, but like, it could be reasonably done. And even if it was like some random technicians like scratched it into the metal before it launched, I still think it would have enough momentum right now that the Bitcoin community would get behind it, even if there was almost no proof.
Yeah, and then after a while, say like 1 Bitcoin is on it. After a while, they see nothing moving from it. I don't know. I feel like the confidence would raise as time goes on.
That's true. That's a good point that I have never thought of until you just said it. Is yeah, if you put like 100 Bitcoin on there, or you know, random people from various sources put 100 Bitcoin on there and it doesn't move, that does increase the confidence a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Who did you send a message to about that?
I joined their Slack or something at one time. I recently messaged them on Reddit, like their actual account. They had an AMA. I put a comment in that. It's hard to talk to people, man. I should have tried harder, but like, it's hard to get these things. You know, if you're on the inside, you know exactly, all right, this is, you know, just at the place I work in, I'm sure it's like very similar with you. Like, I would have no idea how to like approach someone at Amazon, but like, you would know so well, and like the means of doing so, and like how they communicate. And it's the same for where I work, is like I would, it's crazy the difference.
Anyone can email Jeff Bezos. Like, his public email address is the one that he uses.
He can't check that enough though, right? What happens?
He says that he does, but I don't know. He's got to have like a secret one, but I've never.
Yeah, does he do anything else besides check that email?
I don't know how it works, but Jeff@Amazon.com if you want to send him a message.
I think my dad actually. Okay, so this is on here somewhere. Is my dad did send him a message, because same thing I think we've talked about before. They say guaranteed delivery, certain time, and then I don't know if it's just due to. My dad says it's consistent that they now use these like courier vans that are like basically Uber or like a Postmates kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like a contractor or whatever.
Yeah.
That now it's not on time. But also in the past, Amazon has told me that sometimes it's like third party, like they don't have any control on how fast Amazon receives the thing. And so there's lead time depending, you know, just how fast the company that's selling the thing gets it to Amazon, even though Amazon says it's Prime and that it's guaranteed delivery by this time. And then when they miss it, they say they change the wording to something like expected delivery or something like that. And my dad wrote in about that. That's my biggest gripe with Amazon, I think, by far.
Yeah. Actually, to go back to him checking his email, I know that someone checks it, because our team got a message from him that somebody that worked at Amazon had emailed him because their paycheck was wrong or something. And like they emailed just Jeff@Amazon.com, and we got it so that we could, figure it out and fix it, make sure it didn't happen again.
But don't you think there's like an assistant that picks out the important ones, or maybe like some kind of keyword grabber thing?
Yeah, there's got to be something like that. But according to a Recode interview he did like 5 years ago, he says that he checks it, but there's no way that he does.
Have you seen him yet? Can I answer that, or can I ask that?
I have not seen him, no.
Oh.
We do like all hands meetings for the whole company, but like he's in the city at that time and I'm watching it live, but I haven't seen him in person.
Speaking of Amazon, Gil, we have another segment of Thinkularity Investigates. I don't know what to call it, but that other time when you looked into the one random movie, the very obscure movie.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a version 2 of that, which is this Amazon person received like a wedding ring accidentally through Amazon.
Yeah, so I sent the person. Okay, so to explain, you sent me this thread on Reddit about somebody who had a wedding ring in their package that they got from Amazon. So what happened was somebody was packing, putting things in boxes at Amazon in an Amazon warehouse, and I guess their wedding ring came off, and then it ended up at this person's package. And they were looking for the owner of the wedding ring. I think they tracked it down to, where was it? Like Charlotte, North Carolina or something like that?
Tennessee somewhere.
Oh, okay. Well, it ended up somewhere and in some other warehouse, and they were looking for the owner to it. But I emailed the person and then told them how to find a manager at that site, on Reddit. I sent them a message 2 different times and they never responded. So
yeah, my thinking is that they got to the point that they had tried a very reasonable amount to find this person, and it seems like, I don't know if you were able to check, but somebody said that this fulfillment center was not even Amazon owned.
No, it is. I found the managers and things like that, so I know that it's a site. I don't know. I sent the person a message and I said, have you found the owner of the ring? And they said no. And so I told them what they could do to find somebody at that site, and they never responded. So
I got some decent responses, and she even sent me, or she or he, I don't know, sent me there's a little inscription type logo thing on the ring, and they sent me it's too small to photograph apparently, but they sent me a sketch of it that they made. Because so the thing to prove here, so 1, you could get in contact with that manager person, but 2, someone in the comments said that this is a thing. I think I told you about this, but there's some kind of scam thing there where the package handler people at Amazon will pack jewelry or whatever high volume items that are small into whatever packages, and then they have they're in cahoots with the driver who's supposed to take it out before the final delivery, and then they have free jewelry to sell.
Oh. So what was the inscription? Was it some sort of personalized thing, or was it a generic ring?
It looks like a diamond. No, it's the logo of the company. It's they call it a hallmark.
Oh, okay.
And there's actually an entire subreddit called r/hallmark, which is about identifying those kind of things. So I was trying to figure out, okay, is this an item on Amazon? If it is, okay, either it was accidentally packed or it was this weird scheme of kind of theft that I guess is possibly a thing that's happening. And that makes the difference of whether there's even a person to find. But yeah, you provided the details for the manager, so there's that venue too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess that makes sense. I used to work at DHL, doing packing and that type of stuff, and lots of people there were stealing. So I'm not surprised.
And then the other thing is, this is a wedding ring, right? I think I had originally the idea of a engagement ring. It's not that. It's not a diamond in there. Maybe, probably. I don't know, honestly. But a wedding ring typically is just a gold band, right? Or something.
It can have diamonds in it too. So there's the wedding band, and then there's the engagement ring. But at least for me, I call the whole thing the wedding ring. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a terminology thing.
So I'm not sure how even valuable this thing was, but I don't know. It was a fun little thing. That that RBI Reddit, it's r/RBI Reddit Bureau of Investigation, which is usually supposed to be, at least in the description, it says for like criminal activity. So a lot of the posts are like, I need someone to figure out, this blurry license plate so that I can find the people that hit my car or something. And a lot of the posts too are like, I need to find my long lost friend or relative or something like that, which is not technically like a crime thing, but it's still investigative. So it's a pretty cool subreddit.
Yeah, I looked around it a little bit. I want to find a new thing to investigate because looking up the return to Rajapur was fun.
Yeah. Well, so you know what got me into this, Gil? So I found some YouTube person who usually makes like war tactic videos and talks about like just tactical and strategic, like military, Russia versus US armament and all kinds of weird stuff. He made one random video about OSINT, 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 and it's very fascinating. I didn't know that this kind of thing had a word, but I have been like in the past I've sometimes spent like 16 hours straight on this. It stands for open source intelligence. And so this is the concept of how much information can I find out with completely publicly available information? Like Facebook back when it had graph search, or even just now still searching around it. Other social networks, there's like neighborhood based social networks where you can find a lot of information. Google Street View, just photographs, all kinds. I mean, it's really open ended. There's like people search type websites and things like that. So it's really cool, and I'm really excited to know that this is like a word with a field and people like get paid to do it.
Yeah, that is really cool. What is it called again?
OSINT. So there's actually r/OSINT, OSINT, open source intelligence. And so I've been going down this rabbit hole a little bit recently because it's kind of interesting. And there's a couple subreddits. So of course the RBI is a good one, and then OSINT is just about OSINT stuff, although it's relatively small. And then there's one that's called Help Me Find, which is a lot of times just, it's not like, it's just helping people find t-shirts that they saw in a video or something like that. But it's something. So I have booted up a little multi-Reddit here that has those things in it, RBI, OSINT, and Help Me Find. And just sometimes I take a little scroll down it because it's, I've always been looking for something to do like in a little tiny bit of free time that would be like productive or helpful to other people. And this is like a good kind of like skill builder, and it's challenging, and it gets you kind of being creative to find this information. And then, you help someone because it's like, oh, what is this obscure thing that no one knows? And then bam, out of nowhere, you like post exactly the thing. And it's very fulfilling.
I'm going to look more into this and try and find something. If you find a cool like project that you need help with, let me know, and we'll be an investigative team.
Well, I want to post the Rajapur video or the movie to RBI because I think they might do a decent job at it. But part of that is I need to listen back to the podcast that we made about it because I forget all the details of where we left it for right now. And in the OSINT world, I literally just searched in my podcast player OSINT, and I tried a couple podcasts. This one really stood out to me, and I really like it, and I think it's going to become a standard for me. It's a weekly podcast that's approximately an hour, sometimes more, sometimes less, by as much as like 30 minutes. So it kind of varies in length, but it is just called, it's called the Privacy, Security, and OSINT Show. And it's just one dude who just super knows what he's talking about, and he makes these video courses online that you pay for the video courses, which I have not done. But he also has like a bunch of tools, and his website is inteltechniques.com. And so he's just like a privacy crazy person. And it's just interesting to hear about all these things that he can do. Like he was talking about, like I said, there's social networks for neighborhoods, and you're not supposed to be on it if you don't live in the neighborhood. And he talks about like, okay, this is how you can kind of trick them into thinking that you live in the neighborhood, and then you have access to the neighborhood and things like that. So there's all kinds of little interesting tricks and just things on how to finagle and like social engineer and stuff like that.
There was a time a few years ago where I was like really into reading about social engineering type stuff. There's a book called I forget what it's called. It's like Into the Wires or something about Kevin Mitnick. I don't know. He was like a cyberpunk hacker type guy in like the 80s. But it I don't know. There's lots of really interesting stories about social engineering and that kind of stuff.
It is really cool stuff. So I have some categories of things that are kind of interesting to me that I'm like, could this happen on an iPad? And so like, could you do OSINT type stuff on iPad? And the answer is probably no, because people like they're crazy about Linux in that world.
But if you got an iPad and then got like a really cheap laptop and just put Linux on it, you could probably get maybe those two things could do everything you need.
But so the guy that does the podcast that I mentioned and this website that has all these tools, one of the tools, and it's really cool actually, it has like, I'm going down the bar here, it's like email address, Facebook profile, Instagram profile, like there's all kinds of fun cool tools to harvest this data, and just you can find a lot out about things because people don't go to great lengths to just make themselves private, and the services they use try to publish it. But he actually has an entire distribution of Linux. So he's got his own distro for open source intelligence.
Oh, that's cool.
Just like, so there's one called Kali for penetration testing. And there's all kinds of other flavors that are just very specifically configured entire environments that you can boot up and then you nuke them when you're done in like a virtual machine. So you just run a bunch of them and however you want to do it, which is super cool. So you just boot up this thing that he had called Buscador. Is his version, his flavor, or I guess distro of Linux. And it's this entire environment dedicated to it. And then you can just kill it when you're done.
You'll have to send me that. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, this guy, he just very clearly knows his stuff. And I'm big fan. I think I'm going to keep, like, it's funny because I'm tweeting at him and he like doesn't have pictures of himself and this probably isn't his real name. And I'm like using my real name and like I have a link to my website with my phone number on it and like email, and there's no protection at all. Like my strategy has been just put it all out there and overwhelm people that are trying to learn about me.
There's too much information about you. They don't know what to do with.
It's not a great strategy, but it's better than nothing, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'll become a recluse.
I just try and keep my passwords at least really secure.
Yeah. See, this is the password managers, and he goes as far as like he has burner phone numbers through like an app that he has, and he has like SIM cards that are not associated with him at all, and his house is in a trust, so it doesn't have his name on it, and he puts his phone in an RFID proof Faraday bag before he drives home from work or whatever. Like,
that's just not a way to live. That's a little too much.
Well, it's like he keeps describing it as like a hobby, and I get that if it's a hobby, which is cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Plus it's his job, and like he needs to practice his own thing that he tells people. So I like, that's a legitimate case, but that would be a lot for me.
It's really interesting though.
We need to have an after hours version where we keep rolling, because, oh man, I apologize for just venting, because it's what I do.
It's good. Yeah, no, that's what makes the podcast good.